Hi, my name's Darlene, and this is a tutorial using iMovie. It's intended for actors to help them organize their taped footage into a industry standard audition submission. This is for actors submitting for actor roles as opposed to commercial roles, which are marginally different. I've never done one of these technical tutorials before, so this should be interesting. I am showing you the way that I do it. I know within iMovie, there are a couple of different ways you can get the same result that I get. If you know of a better way than the one you see me doing, I'm always up for learning the best way to do things. So either post a comment or send me a note or whatever. I'd love to learn better ways to do things. This tutorial assumes that you already have your taped footage. So I'm not going into, how to do the auditions themselves. This is strictly a technical one for how you take your already taped footage and put it together. The one thing I do really want to stress, though, having just last week attended a casting director Zoom call, this was with some of Vancouver's top casting directors, and almost without exception, they agreed that one of their biggest frustrations is actors not following directions. So I really want to encourage you to get in the habit that as soon as you get that breakdown, you sit down in whatever way you need to do it and click on all of those elements that are really important. And those are the dates that it's shooting to make sure your calendar's clear, the dates the audition has to be in by, and a lot of agencies have an additional requirement that you get it in earlier to allow them to review it prior to it making the casting director by deadline. So make sure you take note of that and come to some agreement with your agent about when they find it acceptable for you to make this submission. Also, make sure you're reading all of the details about the character and about the submission itself. So they may have different reasons for wanting a slate at the front, a slate at the back end, or a tail slate, or a separate file slate. So don't ever assume, oh, I know how to do this and I'll just do it my way and submit it, because you're causing extra work for a casting director, and that's not usually a good way to get yourself known. So go into the details of that breakdown, those instructions from the casting director, and make sure you follow them to a T. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to my screen and talk you through how to assemble your audition footage to make an industry standard submission. Any questions? Most of you know where to find me.
Now we're going to begin with a clear iMovie work area. And we want to start by bringing in your already taped footage. And you can do this a couple of different ways. You can go to File, Import Media, or what I do is I click on Import Media, which gives me some options. And in this case, I have 3 pieces of footage for this tutorial stored on my desktop. So I click on the first one, press Shift, arrow down, and then select Import Selected. Once you've done that, the footage will start to populate in the media area. And this is, you may need to wait a moment or two because it, depending on the size of the pieces you're working with, it can take some time to import. As soon as the images start to appear, they're ready to be worked on. In this area, I do my basic preparations for the footage to then get dragged down to the timeline. So let's start with, this is the body of my slate. And the first thing I want to do is to go up to the cropping tool. Click on that, select crop, and go to the top center handle and drag it down just above my hairline. To me, that's anything above your hairline is a wasted space. So from the bottom, drag it up to somewhere around the armpit level, depending on what it is your audition's for. In the slate, I generally keep it around armpit level. Then I drag down each in the sides till I figure I've got approximately the right dimensions for the screen, but we will fine tune it once we're done. Click return or enter, and then you've got some footage there to work with. Now we're going to move over to your full body. Now on the full body, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to crop. We are going to select the top center handle, drag it down to just above your hairline, and bring it in each side fairly tightly. Now the bottom, you can leave your feet in if they're adorable, otherwise feel free to drag it up, but try and keep it around no higher than your knee level or just below your knees, and then click return or enter. Now we're going to do it with the main body of the audition or the sample one that we're using here today. Same thing again. You'll be a pro in no time. Crop, center handle, drag it down above your hairline, click the bottom up. Now, if this was a dramatic audition, this is about the framing I would select. If it was comedic or required movement, I might pull back a little bit to allow for that. For this purposes, I'm going with a basic dramatic framing and enter. And again, we can fine tune them once they are down in the timeline. So there we've got our three pieces. So in order, let's drag them down. Body of the audition down to the timeline. The next thing I do, once I click on it, and then I go back up to the under the cropping area, crop to fill. Now, sometimes, as you can see, your left, my judgment wasn't bang on, so I have an option here now, and I just hit return, and that allows me to bring it so it fills the screen. Then I go to the audio or volume button, and I click auto, and you'll see the volume down below jump up a little bit, and it helps to keep your volume even throughout your entire audition. So now we have kind of prepped the basics of this. Now we want to go in and do our trimming. There's two different ways to trim it. We always have to get rid of that beginning and end footage or any elements that are not part of your audition. So in this case, I flubbed the first section. So now I'm looking for the beginning of the piece that I want. I go back to the part I don't, hit delete, and it's gone. So from here, I'm going to watch and make sure that this fits what I'm looking for. I know you can't hear it, but basically I'm just talking about the first take here that I want to submit and talking to my reader. Now, obviously, I'm moving along here and I don't want any of the rest of this stuff in, so my first take ends right about there. Now, I like to use Command B, which causes the split and allows me to delete the unwanted footage. Now I'm dragging along until I get to the area where my eyes get the attention of or my attention is clearly focused on my reader. And then I scan along just to make sure that all the elements, things that I wanted to say, are in place. And then I get to, see there I screwed up. So find the next part where you have the attention of your eyes. And you may need to waver back and forth. There we go. No, there we go. Okay. And again, Command B. That causes a break in the footage. Now I want to delete the part I flubbed. Here we go. Now at the end, again, I am going to want to trim off the excess at the end. So I kind of generally find my end point. I might hover around a bit to find out where I've really lost the eyes. Click on the remaining and delete it. So Command B is your friend as you're trimming up your footage. It will cause a break, and then you can delete the unnecessary parts. Now, if you're, sometimes you have to be careful in some really involved footage. There can be fragments at the beginning or end. Use your Command Plus will allow you to zoom in. Command Plus is a zoom function. It allows you to zoom in to be able to catch any fragments that may still be in there that you don't see at first glance. Now I'm going to drag down the main body of my slate. Same thing. Make sure it's trimmed up. Volume, select auto so that everything's in line. With the cropping tool, select where you are visible. Crop to fit. Now it will give you some options here. You can drag that box left or right. I just hit enter because it did the right selection for me. So now I'm going to go to where I think the beginning of my slate should start. About there. Command B, cause the break, delete. So now I've got a clean start to this. So let's go. Hello, blah, blah, blah. You can see me stepping to the side a bit. You'll find out in a moment. And then back to center. Completing the details that were requested of me on the breakdown. And now I'm done. So back to the end. Find out where you lose your eye focus or where you want the last image of yourself showing. Command B, delete the footage that is no longer of use. Now drag down beside your full body. Find a few seconds, I would say 4 to 6 seconds maximum, of footage that best represents you. We all do a lot of fussing and futzing around to make sure we look our best, but find a few seconds. I'm going to go right there and Command B, delete the first part, pick a few seconds here. You know what, I decided I didn't like that front anymore, so I'm going to go to after my hand movements there, Command B. Now I'm going to give myself a few seconds there. It's about there. I may still have some fine trimming to do, but that's going to be about it. Command B, delete the fragments I don't need. Now highlight, click on the full body. And you see where I stepped aside here. So kind of note where that is. You can fine tune it after. Click on this and hold. Drag it over to that approximate area where you've moved aside. So now obviously that part doesn't work, so click on it. We're going to go back up to the screen and click your first option, which says how this new piece interacts with the base piece. Go down to Picture in Picture, and that adds it to, or it becomes part of your first image. I take it snug up to the top right corner and drag down until it fills that up. The second thing I like to do with this is to fade it in and out a little bit. And when you have one that is a picture-in-picture, you'll see two little dots on the right and left top corners. You can drag them in just a couple of seconds so that they fade in slightly and then they fade out. Now you can trim up that piece to fit any length of time that you've allowed for. So there we go. You now have your audition, the body of your audition, your two scenes of your audition, and your slate with an inset full body requirement. Now, what I'd like to do is go to transitions. Transitions are tricky. I wouldn't submit one of my own without them because I do not like the abrupt nature of auditions, starting and stopping and switching between the elements. The key, if you're going to use transitions, is to use the simplest ones, which basically are fade to black, I think. I use fade to black at the beginning, at the end, and at the end of the audition pieces. If I have more than one audition piece, I like to use a cross dissolve in between. These each represent 1 second only. You're going to risk annoying casting directors if I understand some people have been putting in 5-second transitions, and over the course of a day, that's a whole lot of seconds, and it's really just wasted time. So now just have a quick watch through your entire submission. Make sure that all of your transitions work. Now your basic editing here for your audition is complete. So the keys are to crop it, to ensure your volume is enhanced through the entire submission, and that you have a full body representation. I like the insert. You can also do a cutaway. That's not my preference, but you can do that as well. Now it goes time to label. Let me see here. Now what you want to do is find a location where your face is still. And if you're like me, that's hard, but find one where you just have a pleasant, kind of almost neutral expression, and use that as the thumbnail for your submission. So I'm just going to go right at the beginning, right there, and drag my cursor up and off the timeline. Now I'm going to go to share this. I prefer to share to a file, which leaves it on my computer. I'm going to name this according to standard naming protocols. Your first and last name _ the role you are submitting for _ the production name _ your agency. Now, this is where it can get a bit tricky. You want to submit at either 720 or 1080. 720 is acceptable. I'm just quirky about it. I like 1080, although most people probably use 720. Now you can gauge the size of your submission. In this case, we don't have a problem. This would be considered entirely acceptable at 120 whatever megs that it is. Let's say we've been told it can't be any more than 100. I then can drag, under quality, I can drag that radio button down until I am just under 100, and then click save. Make sure I'm saving it to a location where I can find it later. Click save. Now it's going to take just a few moments to finalize, and then you will get a pop-up notification on your desktop that the share was successful and that portion of it is done. Okay, so once you have saved that, rewatched it to make sure that everything translated into a high quality file. Then you want to go to either your Actors Access or your casting workbook and select the options for upload your file, submit your audition. The platforms are a wee bit different. And then navigate back to that file location that you have just verified and have it upload to be your submission. In all cases, I believe that submission first goes to your agent, who then is the one who hits the final button to put it into the casting director's workspace so that your submission is now complete and available for a casting director to watch. So I hope I explained that well enough. I hope it all made sense. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that... the only other thing I'd say is after you've uploaded it, you can usually watch it again. Watch the one that uploaded into the platform, and I highly recommend, I know you've seen it a few times now, but I highly recommend you watch the final one that made its way onto the platform, because on one or two occasions I uploaded and accidentally selected the wrong one. Maybe I had done some edits or something and selected the wrong one. And I'm so glad I caught them and that they didn't get into the casting director's work area. So
Just watch it a final time before you click submit. And then you're happy, your agent's happy, and hopefully you get a booking. So if you have any questions, feel free, you know where to reach me, either through social media or film@darlenetate.com. And this is a great time to sharpen your skills. So take some rough footage, create yourself an imaginary audition so that when the calls start ramping up again, and I had an audition today and I'm heading to set next week. So yes, there's a strike south of the border, but there is still work happening. So take heart, learn how to do the technology, and have fun doing it. Thanks.